Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Byte-size Opinions. Today we have a special one because if the original Byte-size Opinions podcast is software engineering related, today we have a spin-off. It's a product management episode. With me today, I have Bogdan, and Bogdan is a tech-savvy product manager and strategy consultant with a focus on B2B enterprise and developer tools ecosystem, which sounds lovely, by the way. Welcome, Bogdan.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for joining. This is the first time we're doing this, and we have a bit of nervousness in us, but I'm sure we can handle it. So
Sure.
let's start with the first part of the podcast, which is placing the verdict of underrated or overrated on various different topics. And the second part, we will get to it in due time, and it's a little bit different. Are you ready to start?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with an easy one. What about remote or hybrid work?
I would say the conversation about remote versus hybrid is underrated. Choosing one of the other is overrated.
Okay, that's tricky. Interesting, the conversation. Okay, please expand a bit.
So, and I think this is kind of my mindset for most of these topics. My point of view is that if you want to choose one or the other and just go with it and look for its particular pros, it's the conversation is overrated and it's just a bit of a propaganda. If you want to talk about productivity in remote settings, hybrid settings, on-site settings, etc., I think that's always basically underrated, and we should always be discussing how productive we are, either when we're working remote or in the office. So it's
Sure.
a matter of context, I'd say.
Sure, but now the question goes to how do you measure productivity, since it's a very difficult thing to do.
I have a similar opinion. So productivity should be decided, or the definition of productivity should be decided in the particular context that you're having the conversation. So if you are the engineering team of a company, you define your productivity in terms of your own goals, what you want to achieve with your work, etc. If you are the business team, you have a different definition for productivity. And I think it's coming a bit to the product management side of things. It's a bit the product manager's prerogative, or not prerogative, but responsibility to kind of marry the two and define what productivity is for both or multiple different teams in multiple different contexts.
Interesting perspective and complicated answer, as always. Okay, let's go now to another, let's say, popular topic, which is the concept of AI replacing product managers somehow. I'm sure there's talk about this, like it is for replacing software engineers.
Yeah. I would say this topic is obviously overrated.
Because I don't want to lose my job.
No, not because of that. So the first two words in the topic, AI replacing, and then whatever, is overrated. It's obviously one of those sales cycle hypes where we want to put AI everywhere. We want to replace tables with AI. We want to replace everything with AI, or some people want us to think that we can do it. On the other side, speaking of my job or the product management job in general, I think the conversation in this context of AI replacing PMs is a bit underrated in the sense that we could have more conversations about how AI could be helping us, how AI could be helping engineering teams that don't have a PM, or how AI could be helping individual engineers get a PM perspective. Because if you think about it, product management is a lot about conversation. It's a lot about storytelling, of finding context and making decisions. And I think AI, generative AI, if you frame the questions you're asking it and the context you're giving it right, can help engineers, product people, QA, business people, etc., better understand the systems they're building, the challenges they're facing, their users, etc. So a mixed response again from
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I really like this idea. I never thought of it, and I actually think that a workshop for these teams of engineers that don't have a PM, that sounds amazing to me and very valuable.
I can give you a really short piece of like an anecdote. So a few months ago, I was working on an e-commerce platform, and I asked ChatGPT at that time, I don't remember what version it was, to define the requirements for a particular feature. It defined them perfectly, exactly the way I defined them sometime before, which I think is a very good starting point. Already you get like a template that you can start comparing your ideas with, or you can start tweaking some of its aspects. And some time ago, this is the second part, or another anecdote. Some time ago, I asked on LinkedIn if it would be interesting to kind of screencast a session of a product manager doing their work. And one of the first ideas that came to mind was actually screencasting and sharing a conversation with ChatGPT about it, because it can really step into the role of either being a product manager or having product management like conversations, and it would kind of be a very good actor in this type of role play, product management role playing.
Nice, nice. I like it. Very nice exercise. Thank you. Okay, let's go. We're gonna jump to a very different topic, which are
Perfect.
the value of exams and certifications for a PM.
They, from my point of view, they are overrated. Um, I think it's useful to have the base of some body of knowledge from a course, from a book, from even having an exam, passing an exam, or getting a certification. But the moment you start adding certifications on top of certifications and just showcasing them at the top of your LinkedIn profile or your resume, I think the conversation is is a bit dehumanized, I'd say. I think most of the product management field is a mix of science and art, and it's a mix of technology or scientific method, and uh, applying human conversations, empathy, storytelling, as I was saying earlier, to different problems that can be either more or less technical. So I think exams and certifications can only contribute to part of it, can only teach you some basics. After which you basically learn on the job. And I do understand why some companies require exams and certifications when hiring, but I think that a more direct conversation between the hiring manager and the candidate is much more worth it. It's similar to lead code and being able to solve complex algorithm exercises and problems versus having a conversation about some piece of software, discussing what architecture choices you would make and why, etc.
Speaking of lead code, just today I read a story posted by an engineer at NASA who basically said, "I'm working at NASA for how many years? I have so much experience, and today I had to Google how to calculate the volume of a sphere or something like that. Something
Mhm.
basic." So it happens everywhere, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. And this reminds me a bit of that time a few years ago when where the creator of the Brew uh, package manager or installer for Mac OS went to an interview at Google and got rejected.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between what you can show in an interview or how you can pass an exam versus actually building working software and having millions of users, etc.
I think one of the recurring topics in this podcast, or not topics, but conclusions, at least from my part, is that HR is difficult and it's tricky and
Yeah,
it's not really working. But let's not go there now. We have
yeah.
other topics for this show today. And up next is how important is team culture?
Team culture is very underrated. Um, I believe a lot of the HR problems and hiring problems, so I'm going to actually go into that topic a bit,
Okay.
can be solved by better team culture. I'm not necessarily a believer in the fact that you can kind of take a bad team or company culture and change it and improve it. I think those are uh, not ideal ways of approaching the problem, but I think that you can hire people that are similar to your ways of working, similar to your culture, and you can alleviate a lot of problems down the road in terms of people being demotivated, in terms of people getting burnt out, in terms of people leaving because they're bored or they don't like your way of working, etc. So I think we should have a lot more focus on team and company culture when we hire. But again, not in that sense where we bring in a consultant or we bring fruit to the office and add some
Big bananas.
yeah, exactly. I mean that can be part of it as long as it's organic and not just trying to fix it.
Tick a box. We have good team
Exactly,
culture. Check.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
basically, being humans and making sure that our way of thinking and approaching problems is similar because it's
exactly.
not
Yeah,
necessarily wrong to be different. You just
yeah,
have to
yeah.
group together. Mhm.
I think it's very important to look at whatever we want to do, whatever we want to adopt in terms of technology or frameworks or processes, etc., and be very transparent if they would work for us, if they're actually good for us, instead of just copying them from the market or from LinkedIn or from some consultant that's selling those to us. And I would also say, coming back to the HR part, that I think HR should be very involved in company culture, but not in the sense of bringing fruit and giving us vouchers to buy headphones, but in the sense that they should actually be more involved with particular teams, with people and their ways of working. I've worked in a lot of companies, and HR were mostly doing admin work, so contracts, sending salaries, checking your uh, paid leave days, etc. And they were not involved in the actual ways of working and communication between people, etc.
So they were focused on the resources, not on the human.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Sad to hear that. Now, the next topic is a bit harder to explain. So it's mostly applying or using different frameworks and methodologies through software and processes.
Overrated.
Overrated.
Yes, I
Have
think
you
it's
have you have you thought of any specific methodology or framework when you said that?
Yes, it's obvious what I'm thinking about, or what the entire internet, or at least LinkedIn, is talking about. So I have two perspectives on this. Again, one of them would be overrated, the other one would be underrated. I think it's overrated to adopt frameworks and methodologies and even libraries or computer languages just because they're the shiny new thing, or because they seem to be working in another place, or because they seem very cool in an employer branding blog post by another company. So I think that's overrated. I think what is underrated is actually coming together as a team, discussing these things, maybe testing a new methodology of working, or a new framework, or even a new library, etc., in a really short, hackathon or something like that, and then deciding together and discussing through the benefits and the setbacks, etc. So it's important to experiment. It's important to have open conversations about how we want to work and what we want to use when working, but not just adopting, and especially not pushing them top down. Hey team, from Monday we're gonna work it this way.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. I I agree. I mean, I also think that you need some sort of structure, you need some sort of methodology, but just picking something that's popular and forcing it there, and not only forcing it, but also infusing it in your company without asking why are we doing this, that's dangerous, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. So you can build your own, you can tweak existing methodologies, like you can tweak Scrum, you can tweak Kanban, you can do whatever works, but change it and make it work for your company, and look at how people are feeling when they're using it, look at what the results are, etc. Don't just, put some meetings on the calendar and try to follow those. And I think it's called agile theater, for example, when you just do the ceremonies and have the conversations and use the words, but nothing's agile about it behind the scenes.
Sounds just about right, that name. Cool. Let's move on to data driven decisions.
Overrated.
Overrated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I say overrated, I'm reacting to the label, or to the form of this. I think I've seen a lot of places that want to be data driven. Um, have seen some blog posts about it. Have started using some tools, but actually they're not using real data, or they're trying to squeeze too much information from very incomplete data. I think it's, if you have the data points that are helpful, or if you can get them, implement some sort of analytics, or run some sort of business intelligence on top of raw data, etc., and you see that results are there. Sure, data driven is excellent, but at least in the field of product management, especially when you want to extend software, when you want to build new features, I think it's very important to look at the less data driven and more user or human driven data points, human driven, let's say, signals, and make decisions based on those. Um, Sometimes I can give you an example. So at some point, you're going to see that analytics in a certain area of your app show an overwhelming need for a specific change.
Okay.
And I've seen this. So I've seen people getting blocked in a certain step of build of a software flow, and it was very clear that we needed to automate it somehow or to make their decision easier. We did that. We spent not too much time, so we probably spent 2-3 weeks to automate that particular point. And we realized gathering more data that wasn't actually the problem, and the actual solution came from talking to users, getting in a face-to-face interview with them, and asking them what they were thinking in that particular place of the journey. So data kind of lied to us in a sense.
Wait. I want to understand. So, was there a case of that wasn't an issue that needed fixing, or the fix or whatever you did wasn't the right choice?
It was a mix of those two. The thing is, data was pointing in a particular direction, but the actual people using the software and the users, when we talked to them, kind of contradicted the data. If you think about it, most data points and most data models of anything, including physics, are just samples of the reality. So you cannot have every information even about a ball falling to the ground. You have some samples about it. You have some data points that can be very specific, like nanosecond precision levels, but you don't know everything about it, or you don't know from the beginning. And I think us humans, especially talking to each other, especially in human-centered environments like software that humans use, can kind of have at some points better hunches and gut feelings than the data would show.
Interesting. I'm also, well, let's say I'm a bit worried because I didn't consider this topic to be overrated. So you're shining a new perspective on this, and I appreciate that.
So I'm happy you're kind of thinking about it, and you're a bit, I would say, a bit confused, maybe. I think we're placing too much trust on data sometimes. And
yeah, I understand.
And for example, you can look at from another perspective. Speaking of methodologies, if you look at velocity, story points, feature output, etc., of a software team, those might say one thing. They might tell us a particular story. You might either be satisfied or dissatisfied, or they might be good or bad for the business just looking at the data. But actually talking to the developers, looking at the system, understanding the qualitative side of things can bring more clarity, and sometimes can actually bring the clarity that you need.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. All right. Thank you for this. Now, I think we have 2 more topics in this round. The next one is a popular tool called Jira, but let's also make it a bit global, this ticket trackers software.
Well, I think for most cases, or for some cases, Jira is overrated. I think it's too complicated of a solution, especially for small projects. And ticket trackers in general can sometimes be overrated as a tool. Sometimes, especially in the product management field, you can actually make your job be kind of a Jira user. So if you're not paying attention, you lose track of users, you lose track of the actual system you're working with, you lose track of the real business and your real responsibilities and where you can actually bring value, and you can stay stuck in Jira, creating tickets, organizing tickets, adding details, checking progress, etc. And this goes for other trackers too. And yeah, I think it's important to kind of take a step back. And I think this is part of the role of the product manager. Take a step back and look at the different other perspectives, other groups, other teams, and other ways of understanding the system you're working on, instead of just this is the backlog, this is the roadmap.
Yeah,
What's next?
that's a fair point. I mean, what you said earlier about, especially for smaller companies, that's kind of my view that Jira is very, in a way, it's very powerful. You can do a lot of customization, and that's the downside of it, because you actually need to know exactly what you want to do and how to do it. And in a smaller company, that's usually not the case. So it's better to go with a tool that's more, let's say, out of the box. It provides you with a good enough experience and doesn't let you run around in circles trying to figure out a lot of different things.
Yeah. An analogy came to mind. So the Mercedes G-Wagon is a very capable car, off-road car.
Okay.
It's powerful. It has differential lockers. It has low gear, transfer case, etc. You can go anywhere with it. It's very reliable, etc. Most of the time, at least what I'm seeing, you see it in the city going from 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 a restaurant to the supermarket, and from the supermarket to the mall.
Yeah.
It's not being used for what it's built for. And if you look at it from the environmental perspective, or if you look at it from the personal financial perspective, it's too much. It's an overkill for what it's being used for. But if you're actually using it for what it's meant to do, it's a great tool. And Jira is a great tool when it's actually needed. From my point of view, in terms of ticket trackers, when I would start a new project, I just go for the simplest Kanban thing you can start with, or the simplest columns to do in progress done.
Yes.
Start with that, see how it goes for a few days, a week. You can add more columns, you can change it, you can go to Jira at some point. I think we shouldn't focus on the tool, we should focus on the actual work and goal we're trying to accomplish.
Nice. And just a side note for people watching or listening, this show is not sponsored by Mercedes, but we are open to partnership.
Yes. Very capable car, the G-Wagon.
So somebody is a car enthusiast.
Sometimes, yeah. Part of me.
And finally, one more topic, also very general topic, the idea of creating roadmaps for 6 months or maybe 1 year roadmaps.
I think it's overrated. So this answer, of course, as the previous ones, has two perspectives. I have two ways of looking at it. I think it's overrated to create a plan for 6 months or a year or 2 years and just stick to it and spend a lot of time working on it, reviewing it, etc. I think it's what is underrated in the roadmaps category is actually discussing what you want to accomplish by building it. I was thinking about this a few days ago. When you build a static roadmap, even the name doesn't sound good, because you're not going to build something that you know in advance how it's going to look. So a roadmap is, I'm in Bucharest, Romania, and I want to go to Berlin by car. What is my roadmap? And then I take the map, or I use Google Maps or Waze or whatever other online tools exist, and I say, I'm going to start in Bucharest, I'm going to stop in, somewhere in the west of Romania for one night. Then in the next couple of days, I'm going to go through Hungary, stop in Budapest, have a beer. Then I'm going to continue, etc. You know the path in front of you. You kind of know the context, the roads, etc. So you're using the map that already exists to define your way through the environment. When you're building the software roadmap, you don't know what the road is. It might be similar to kind of having a space travel dilemma. How am I going to get to planet Z, especially when it's uncharted territory ruled by the rebels or something like that? So what you can do is, I've seen this before, and I think it's a very good exercise in imagination, in bringing the team together, coming back to company culture and to ways of working. Bring everyone together, even developers, designers, etc. Not in the sense that you're robbing them of their time and you're keeping them in meetings and they cannot focus on code, etc. But in the sense of, okay, what do we want to achieve? What can we achieve? What do we have at this point? So kind of understanding the setting, the context. Developers, and I've been in sessions like these, developers can also kind of show some demos or show some code, or go into the code in a breakout room and come back in half an hour, something like that.
Okay.
So you can build some sort of branched roadmap in which you say, we are at this point. So once you understand the system at point A, and you understand what the challenges are or what the goals are for the business, you can start saying, okay, we can do A or B or C.
Mm-hmm.
If we go, what are the pros and cons of A, B, and C? Okay, what happens if we go to point C and we realize that it's not going to work, or we realize we need to pivot, etc. So you can build some sort of scenarios in which you have multiple different perspectives and multiple different potential routes. You discuss them together, and then you kind of keep this in mind even when you take a decision and say, okay, this is where we are. Let's take this route. Let's build it this way. Let's aim for having it in 2 months or whenever. But always keep in mind that there are alternatives, and remember the conversation. I think it's more valuable because I think it brings everyone on the same page. Roadmaps can be very hard coded and can bring a lot of tension. Sometimes if you say, I'm going to commit to this roadmap, and you get closer to the middle of it or to the end of it, you realize that you might be building something completely wrong. So it's kind of not agile, not that agile, at least.
I have a question. So you mentioned you have different potential alternatives, let's say, right?
Yeah.
These alternatives, these options, right? They are to achieve the same objective, or they are for different objectives?
It depends a lot on the setting. My main, but let's focus on having one objective. So my main point is roadmaps should be editable. They should be the result of collaboration between engineering, design, business, product, etc. With product probably being the facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
And the state in which roadmaps are at this point, and most companies and teams are using them, I think it's doing a disservice to everyone involved.
Everyone involved, exactly. Yeah. Okay, I think this could very well be a standalone topic by itself, and talking for half an hour just on this. So thank you. This was the last topic. This is the end of the first round. Very nice job. Now we're back. We're going to the second one, which is a bit different, like I said in the beginning. So, if in the original podcast we had a rapid fire round where we would go through 10 different topics or more and just placing a verdict of yes, it's underrated, no, it's not. Now we're not going to do that. We're going through a bunch of topics and we're getting right into it. No verdicts whatsoever. Okay.
Sure.
For example, for example, let's talk about team composition. How do you see a, a kind of ideal team? The size, the structure.
Uh, Small teams are good teams. uh, it depends a lot on how your software system is or product is architected, how the different features or the different components work together, how complex they are. But I think a team of 4 engineers, 5 engineers, and a product manager is ideal. Now, I realized that at some point you cannot really have, like when you have 20 engineers, you cannot have 4 product managers, or it's too much, or you don't have the budget for it. Sometimes it doesn't actually make sense. Going back to ways of working and company culture and frameworks, etc. I think if you frame it correctly and if you have a good level of empowerment for engineers, a good level of freedom to make choices and to choose the best solutions for a particular problem, you can have less product managers working with, so one product manager basically working with different teams, but that wouldn't be really involved in all of the details. Product manager would kind of guide the team to understand the problem, understand the user, understand what they want. I'm a big advocate of people and engineers talking to users, etc.
Yes, that was obvious from the previous answers.
Yeah. So yeah, I think a team of 4, 5, 6 people around that is ideal for uh, for for team cohesion, for communication, for synchronization, etc. And then it's up to, and depending on the actual context and product, if that team is 3 people or it's 7, let's say, I mean, and if they work on which type of feature, if they help other teams, etc.
I think this ties in nicely with the next topic, which is the different flavors of product managers, right?
Yeah, yeah. 1 second, I want to bring more light into the room.
Sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of different flavors of product management and of product managers. There are a lot of different types of requirements and expectations from companies hiring them, or from founders hiring product managers. At least from what I've seen, and I've seen a lot in the past almost 10 years of doing product management. I've worked with different startups, big companies, small projects, big projects. For example, at one point I was working with as the sole product manager on a team of about 50 developers
Wow.
and QA. It was a legacy, very old legacy, and I'd say very big product, around 10 million lines of code as far as I know. And I did have some business analysts that I was working with. So they would kind of go into the details, and I would be at a bit of a higher viewpoint. I've worked with companies where I was the product manager of 2 developers. So that's a big difference. There are companies and there are places where the product manager is the main Jira user. There are other places where the product manager sits with developers, write SQL, who can, do a small POC. And I know there are purists around, and I've heard this sentence a lot, like that's not what the product manager does. I think that the role of the product manager is to kind of bring value, look at the different teams, look at the product, talk to users, etc., and find the best ways of bringing value to the user and to the business. So this can be a very different job in different contexts. As I said, some can be technical, some product managers can write SQL, others might only be writing PowerPoint presentations and checking, Excel spreadsheets for ROIs of different, different features, etc. So, but my belief is that as long as there are some limits and as long as value is being created and basically everyone involved, product manager, founder, development team, designers, QA, etc., are happy with how things are going, product management can be a very different thing in different contexts.
So it varies based on the size of the team and the project. It varies based on the culture of the company.
Yeah.
Now the question is, could one person in this product management role at one company go through different flavors?
They could if they wanted to. From my experience, having hired product managers and coached product managers, there are certain people that mostly like to do one side of the job, or only one type of one flavor of product management role. So there are very few people that would actually kind of go through everything, especially in large companies. Now, speaking of startups and 0 to 1, I think I was actually thinking about this, trying to figure out where I can bring most value, in which type of company, which type of product. And I realized that startups at the very beginning can benefit from having a product management consultant to coach them, to give them some hints, to basically train them to be product managers. But I think it's the role of the founders to be the product managers at the beginning. As you go through the different stages and hopefully you are successful, you start to grow, you start to be a scale up. I would say that when you have 20, 30 people, it's already a different story. And that's where you can think of hiring a dedicated product manager and kind of splitting part of the product management responsibility between founders and the product manager, growing even more. And you can go to, huge corporations like, Microsoft, Oracle, or Google. I think that's a very specialized role. The product manager usually does fewer things. As we all know, in big corporations, everything's more process focused, everything takes longer. There are drawbacks and benefits for each of these ways of working. I think it's important to switch them in different companies, at least. I think I've seen product managers that only understand and can only work on the PowerPoint presentation and Excel spreadsheet side of things. I've seen product managers that basically never get out of the Jira and tickets part, or product managers that only do marketing related stuff. So I think it's important to switch between these types of roles and understand as much as you can, and then you can choose, okay, I'm going to specialize on this side.
Nice. And continuing on to the Microsoft Oracle examples, what's the difference between a consumer product versus a B2B or an enterprise one?
the most obvious things that you can find online anywhere, and that you can basically get from a simple Google search is that consumer products usually focus more on the UX, usually focus more on looking good, usually make it very simple to use them. It's very difficult to grow because you need it to be viral usually. Most of the time, or a lot of times, it's either free or some sort of freemium. It depends a lot. B2B and enterprise products, they need to be more focused on, obviously, on professional users. Sales cycles are longer, selling is more difficult. Security concerns appear at the very beginning. So even with consumer products, you can have breaches and it can be very dangerous, etc. But usually you see those later. It's like someone like a 17-year-old kid installing an app is not going to ask themselves if it's secure or if it's built right, etc., where the data is stored, in which cloud, in which region, etc. Enterprise and B2B customers, especially enterprise, are going to ask those questions at the very beginning. So I think it's more difficult to build B2B and enterprise products, but more difficult to grow consumer products, or at least to grow them sustainably and have them make money.
So from a product management perspective,
Yeah.
There are various degrees of difficulty, right?
Yeah. There are various degrees of difficulty, and even the role, as we were talking earlier, changes. I mean, for enterprise and B2B, you will look more at vetting your vendors, at working more with sales, doing due diligence when integrating with a third-party vendor, or when deciding which way you're gonna steer the product. As I said, sales cycles are long. You need to invest in marketing. You need to invest in customer support, etc. And this is kind of, I'm mentioning these things because product management, from my point of view, should be involved in these decisions. And even when we're talking about marketing and sales, product managers have marketing and sales as some of the primary stakeholders in B2B and enterprise products. For consumer products, the primary main stakeholder is the user, and you're going to be spending more time interviewing customers, and it's generally the rate of building new features and testing them and A/B testing, etc., is going to be much faster.
Right. So considering this, if I'm a founder and I'm looking to hire a product manager, depending on my product, if it's destined for B2B or not, I should be looking for a product manager who has experience into B2B, let's say, if I'm also building a B2B, right?
It would be great. My personal preference when I'm hiring or looking to partner with someone is, first thing is cultural fit. But yeah, it's great to have someone that already has experience in B2B and enterprise products. For consumer products, it's interesting that you don't need to look for a lot of experience, because almost everyone has kind of a small product manager inside of them. They're using different consumer products. They can see them. You can spark their curiosity and make them analyze the product and look for alternatives, etc. It's way easier, but it's, for example, I don't have a lot of experience with SAP. I've only integrated with it as an external API or external system. So I really have no idea how it looks internally. And if someone would come to me and ask me to work as a product manager for an SAP, very SAP related product, I would probably say, I'm not sure I'm the best person to work with. I would say go search for someone that has experience with SAP, and I can help you coach them to be a product manager.
Nice. Good answer for you. Okay, two more. This would be some examples of tools, various different tools that you are using and that you can recommend for
I would
design,
recommend, yeah,
analytics, brainstorming, stuff like that.
I would recommend using the simplest tool that you have. So as soon as you have one person working on a product, or two people or three people, you can start drawing on a notebook. You can start using a whiteboard. You can start using a text document. Everyone hates Excel for these things, but you can even start using Excel and creating like a short document in there with columns and rows, and trying to understand things there. I think I saw a talk by Rich Hickey, the creator of Clojure, recently, and it was related to designing software. And he was basically talking about from my point of view, the product management side of, or the product management that developers should be doing or can do on their own. Finding pros and cons for different alternatives, building documentation, trying to map the problem that they're looking to solve, etc. And he was showing at some point an example with Excel. Why not? So from my point of view, start with the simplest things, the things that you have at hand, in terms of both design, analytics, and brainstorming tools, and just start from there and then see where you need to grow.
All right, fair. Now,
for example, when I have something to solve, I open Visual Studio Code,
okay,
and I start writing some bullet points. That's where I start.
A notepad, basically.
Yeah, digital. Any type of text editor. Yeah.
So, but okay, so you do that for you, right? You write your ideas so that you can start getting a sense of how things should work. Oh, okay, and you reached a conclusion. How do you transmit that to your colleagues?
I think it's important who you're talking to, obviously. So I've had a lot of meetings where I was presenting a problem or an idea or some sort of context to developers. You know what I did? I increased the font of my text editor. I improved the formatting a bit, and I just showed them that. And I was talking with them through that 7 lines of text. If you want to show the same thing to your marketing team or to the users of your B2B tool, for example, you can put it in a short presentation. You can directly have a conversation and do a demo of the system, of the product. So again, I'm going for simplicity and using the simplest tool at hand.
Okay. Now, this podcast is not sponsored by Miro, but I do use Miro boards quite a lot.
Yeah.
I find it very flexible, and I can talk to different types of users at the same time, I think.
Great tool for when you need it. Yeah, I also use it. I also use it to kind of create visual representations of anything, of any idea, and links between ideas. But the first thing that you do, you can draw it on a piece of paper.
Sure.
And I think it helps our way of perceiving. I think there are studies about this. I'm not sure. I don't have the data points on it, but I'm almost certain there are studies saying that if you write a few words with your hand, you're going to remember it better, and it's going to be integrated differently in your cortex versus typing it on a keyboard or using a different type of tool like that.
I know. I read that similar information study. And one more topic, which is quite general. What's the latest hype or the buzzwords in product management field?
AI, obviously, AI writing tickets for you, AI writing stories for you, AI replacing you. Another one is I'm seeing a lot of analytics tools. So customer analytics tool, product analytics tool. I've used a few recently. I'm not going to mention them, but they're very similar between themselves. So they look very similar, and I honestly, I think it's a bit of an inflation problem here. Everyone seems to be trying to create a product analytics tool, but they're kind of all almost the same. It makes me think of wasted potential of actually those developers and those product managers and those companies working on them. But hey, if they're making money and it's working, sure, why not? Hype and buzzwords in product management. Yeah. There's always this ongoing conversation about, for example, product-led things.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting marketing twist on what product management really is, and I think it's a different way of presenting it. It's basically the new kid on the, or it used to be the new kid on the block. It's not anymore. But it's kind of, from my point of view, recycling and reusing some of the basic agile principles, like talk to users, don't do documents, etc. Make your product the thing that speaks for you, not your salespeople or your funding conferences and stuff like that. Yeah, honestly, thinking about it, so hype, buzzwords, it's AI comes to mind the most these days.
Yeah.
I'm kind of slowly waiting for the wave to pass. At least the hype wave. AI is going to be here. AI, so statistical prediction is useful, is going to be useful for different things. But it seems like everyone's trying to sell you AI as the latest and best thing.
What are you using AI for?
I'm using it as a generator of ideas sometimes. So I think if you give it a good prompt, it can quickly generate some ideas for you or quickly generate some conversation points. I've used it for some coding because I like to code sometimes. I like programming languages. I like to be in the loop and understand what developers are talking about, understand architecture, etc. And sometimes I don't remember the exact way of doing something or how to use a library or etc. And I basically just use Chat GPT and tell it, okay, tell me how to do this. I test it, it works. Okay, so you were not hallucinating this time. I use it for summarizing articles. But I've had instances where an article saying Vladi Iancu, your name, Vladi Iancu invented the color orange, etc. Basically hallucinated a different name instead of Vladi Iancu. It was fascinating. Yeah.
I don't like the word hallucination. I mean, I don't think it's accurate, but I understand.
I think it's funny.
Yes, it's very funny indeed. Okay, well, awesome. We reached the end. We managed to survive.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bogdan.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. And please let us know, what do you think about this spin-off? Do you want to hear more? Do you want different topics? Please let us know, provide feedback, because feedback is our best friend.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.